You know, I can't seem to stop talking about all the different ways that you could go about taking some kind of a computer, hooking up a bunch of storage, and putting it on your network to gain super quick access to streaming your media collection from anywhere in your home. Look, I've talked about Raspberry Pis, I've tested several different computer platforms, new mini PCs, NASs, hard drives connected to your router, and probably a few others that I can't even really remember right now. But one thing that all of these setups have in common that really bothers me is how they're not exactly made for this purpose. They just happen to be capable of running some server software, but there's such a ridiculous range of prices and models with different expansion capabilities, hardware choices, and software compatibility that it's super difficult to tell if one of these random systems would actually work for your needs. And honestly, the Zima Blade here from Ice Whale Tech, who sent this unit in for review, isn't a perfect solution to this dilemma, and I'll be walking you through plenty of things that I like and plenty of things that I really don't like about it. But I still feel like the Zima Blade has a unique approach that no other single board computer or even mini PC has been able to pull off. The Zima Blade here is basically a tiny little single board computer that's marketed for the quote-unquote cyber natives, as Ice Whale puts it, and if you look past the cheesy marketing, I actually really respect their mission here. Because right now we're way too reliant on cloud services like Google Docs and Drive and various streaming services for all the stuff we do with our devices these days. And the mission of the Zima Blade is very simple: to try to bring that ability of hosting the cloud back to the individual. And while this job could definitely be served well with something like a Raspberry Pi, the Zima Blade tries to offer some seriously cool benefits that I think make a lot of sense if you want to get started with a personal cloud. For starters, it uses a regular x86-64 Intel processor and UEFI firmware, so it can run any software a regular PC can, and it has some very useful expansion interfaces that a Pi just could not dream of. We got a DDR3L SODIMM slot for adding up to 16 gigs of RAM, a regular PCIe 2.04x slot for pretty much any expansion card you might want to stick on the side, mini DisplayPort, gigabit Ethernet, USB 3 across an A port and a C port, and what's got to be my favorite is the pair of SATA ports, as well as a power jack for connecting two standard 3.5-inch hard drives. This is honestly so much more convenient than a Raspberry Pi for server use, since you don't need any extra hats for connecting SATA drives, and while the Pi 5 has PCIe 2.0, it's exposed in this little ZIF socket that requires an adapter to connect anything useful, and even then it's limited to a single lane, so it only has a quarter of the throughput of the Zima Blade's standard PCIe slot. With this thing, you can just slap on a graphics card, M.2 adapter, and 10 gig network, or literally anything else you could possibly imagine, and it should just work, as long as you're okay with the fact that you'll probably have to take off your card's PCIe bracket. Not to mention, they also included 32 gigabytes of eMMC storage on board, so no SD cards to worry about here, and it comes in this really nice plastic and aluminum case, which doubles as a heatsink on the bottom for keeping that x86 processor cool, which is a really nice touch. That Intel processor can also vary depending on the model you get. The lower-end Zima Blade comes with a dual-core Celeron N3350 and retails for $79, and the one I have here, the higher-end 7700 model, goes for $120 and ships with one of three different processor options: the Celeron N3450, the Celeron J3455, or the Atom X5 E3940, all of which are quad-core processors. Now, the astute among you may have realized that each of these CPUs are like 8 years old and have varying base clocks and TDPs, which I really don't feel great about, since there's absolutely no indication which one you're going to get in your Zima Blade. But they do promise performance should be pretty close across all three models. They also sent me 16 gigs of RAM to test with, which retails for $40 on their website, which is really high. If you don't need that much RAM, you can salvage DDR3L from many old laptops, or just buy like a 4GB SODIMM module on eBay for $6, and that'll save you a lot of money. They also sell their official USB-C power adapter for $16, but please make sure you pay attention to the specification of this adapter because there's been a lot of confusion about this. The Zima Blade is powered with 12 volts through its USB 3.0 Type-C port, so I tested the Zima Blade with a couple of different USB power delivery chargers, and each of those chargers turned the board on perfectly fine. The confusion here is that the official USB-C power adapter made for the Zima Blade states that it only outputs 12 volts at 3 amps and mentions absolutely nothing about USB power delivery. It should also have a rating for outputting 5 volts for use with any other regular USB-C device, and it should only output anything higher than 5 volts when a compatible USB power delivery device is detected. So given that, I decided to test the Zima Blade power adapter with a little microcontroller I had on hand to see if it would output 5 volts. But instead, it activated a second light on the board that I don't think was there before. Rest in peace, ESP32. A charger capable of outputting this high of a voltage to a regular USB-C device should never be sold, and I'm honestly appalled that this is making its way to customers. But the good thing is, you don't have to buy it. I personally use this Anchor charger for a bunch of different devices, link in the description, and it doesn't blow any of them up, which is a really great feature. With all of that out of the way though, I want to start talking about some of the positive things again, because once you have all the right stuff with the Zima Blade, I really do think it's a pretty cool device. Hooking it up to power, we'll find that the Zima Blade ships with plain old Debian Linux pre-installed, running Casa OS, which is honestly a favorite of mine. I've done this exact setup in previous videos, and I feel like it's a really good choice for this hardware. If you're not aware, Casa OS is a free and open source web interface for giving you a lot of NAS-like features on any regular PC platform. And it's actually made by the makers of the Zima Blade free for the community, which I think is really cool. Everything here worked just like it does on any other device that I've installed Casa OS on. You get Docker containers, storage management, it's easy to create network shares, and all that good stuff. We don't have any storage connected right now, so I figured I would go ahead and give that a shot. Icewhale actually offers this really nice little enclosure for the Zima Blade that holds two 3.5-inch hard drives, and you connect them using the optional SATA Y cable, which basically turns this into a really nice little compact 2-bay NAS for a really attractive price. But of course they didn't want to send me one, so instead I had to get a little creative. The Zima Blade is marketed for makers and people that want to tinker with their setup, so I decided to see if I could put together my own little mini NAS using 2.5-inch hard disks or solid-state drives, and I found this fantastic 3D model by Arnell et al., I hope I got that name right, over on Printables, which adds a couple of toolless 2.5-inch bays to the side of the board. This was really easy to install, and with that done, I would use the SATA Y cable if they sent me one, but instead I just settled with the included single drive SATA cable that ships with the Zima Blade, and made use of one of my 1TB mechanical disks for testing. And since I was having so much fun, I also decided to grab a PCIe 4X to M.2 NVMe SSD adapter off Amazon to add another terabyte of super fast solid-state storage. And just like that, you can add 2 mechanical drives plus an NVMe SSD to your Zima Blade for less than the price of a bare NAS. And I really feel like that opens up a lot of possibilities. Even though the CPU is older, it's still got more than enough guts for direct streaming 4K video over Plex or Jellyfin, running Docker containers, and serving files over the network, all without too much power consumption. So in some ways, I really feel like this is a better 2-bay NAS than some of the actual 2-bay NAS options on the market. And the expansion makes it way more attractive than some low-end ARM board. One thing I didn't feel super great about was the heat that this thing was kicking out, but there are some options for adding a cooling fan, which really might be a good idea if you're going to be running this thing 24/7. All in all, if you're interested in a relatively affordable compact home server with the expansion capabilities of a regular PC, but without all the issues that come with trying to get a used PC, well, I really feel like the Zima Blade sits in a unique position in the market, especially if you want a place to keep a couple of big hard drives for your first serious NAS without making too serious of an investment. I just really wish they would have provided a USB power delivery charger. Surely they could get them cheap enough, and I just don't like that customers aren't going to know which CPU they're getting with the quad-core model, so that's something that you're going to have to consider. But for the price, the utility here is really hard to compete with. If you're interested, I'll be sure to leave links to Icewhale's website down in the description and probably an Amazon affiliate link if you want to help us out directly. So, with all that said, I think it's about time to wrap up this video. I hope you found it helpful. Let us know if you have any questions or comments down in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our future content. And as always, have an awesome day.